Do you know where I get the inspiration from?
No.
Wait,
Take,
I'm gonna
take
do
the
this.
compliment.
I'm gonna do this.
So in the earliest days of Jam, we weren't getting the product just right. We would just keep launching, and we launched 7 different variations of this product that failed.
So much more authentic to be a part of that journey than it does being like, I like the brand or I don't like the brand. Yeah.
There's something about seeing the people behind it that creates this trust. Each time we would ship something, it would solve one business problem but present another. And PMs were like, this is great, I would love to use this. Like their engineers would be like, you want me to add what to staging? Hi.
Why? It's you.
Kyle, I love how you're building this company. I love the sharing the updates on Twitter. I love the podcast. I just it's just there's so much.
Do you know where I get the inspiration from?
No.
Wait, I'm gonna
Take
do
the
this.
compliment.
I'm gonna do this.
I just really there's an energy in what you are building, and it's so awesome.
Well, I think that's there must be kindred spirits. I want to tell you a funny story. I about 3 or 4 days ago, I was updating my Stacklist profile, and I was going into LinkedIn, and I was just sort of checking stuff, and I was updating profiles, and I started updating my profile saying like building Stacklist and helping people, yada yada yada. And then my CTO Martina, just put a LinkedIn article out about what it's like to be a woman in tech, in leadership. And so, and then we started brainstorming. We're like, you know what, we should just do a podcast and start to talk about things like this. So she's actually interviewing the CEO of Smarty.ai later this week, and we're gonna do that. And so what happened was I said, all right, we got to get this thing going. We're gonna call it, I got it, Building Stacklist.
No, it's so cool.
No. And then what's funny is I think so we started building Jam's Stacklist, and I started doing all the Jam research, and then I went to the podcast and I go, oh, it's the same thing.
I love it.
It's been in my head, like it basically like all the Jam stuff's been getting in my head, and so I'm also like, I got a great idea, and then it ends up being the same thing that you've got.
That is so cool. I really love it. I'm so excited to listen. Do you know what ours is inspired by? Ours is also inspired by someone else.
Who?
Do you remember literally 10 years ago, 2014? Do you remember Gimlet Media?
Oh yeah. Oh, that first episode was just like, it was the best. I remember he had the recorder, and he basically goes home and he's talking to his wife. His wife's like, what are you going to do? Yeah, and it was so raw from like the first second that somebody had an idea. And I love that.
It is my favorite podcast ever created, that first season of Startup. And so when we first were like, let's do the Building Jam podcast, what he did was incredible, but we were like, can we bring people in the same way that he did? Inspiration.
Amazing. Well, we're taking a page from your book, and we're doing that. And I think it's interesting because I also early on got some advice about like sort of not having the advertising or the marketing or the brand be sort of me, and just having it stand on its own and whatever it is. And then as more and more I see, like, I would say you and the Jam team, and also Tyler from Beehive is just a great example too, right? Like everything comes from, and you see all the wheels in motion like every day and what's happening. And I almost feel like it is so much better, not just the transparency and building in public, but really also you're part of a story, and it's not just like, I either like the brand or I don't. You know what I mean? Like Whirlpool or Intel or whatever. You just have these brands, and they are what they are, and they've tried to sort of build this thing. But it's so different when you get like an Apple, and you just knew Steve Jobs is, you know what I mean, his thing, and you get in there, and then what you and the team are building with Jam and Beehive, and like, you know, all the ins and outs, and you're part of that story, and you feel like you're sort of part of that community, and it feels so much more authentic to be a part of that journey than it does being like, I like the brand or I don't like the brand.
When early on at Jam, we were making like the very first engineering decisions of like what tools and platforms to use, I asked our like very small team then, should we go with Netlify or Vercel? And at the time, they're like, let's go with Vercel. And I asked, why? Like,
Yep.
why do you like Vercel more? And their answer was very surprising. They said, I don't know, but I follow some of the engineers that work there on Twitter.
Yep.
There's something about seeing the people behind it that creates this trust because it sort of messages like they are proud of their work. They're not hiding behind it. And because they are because they are showing their face with it, like I can trust that they're giving this their all, something like that.
Totally. What is I actually uh says, oh yeah, Guillermo. I saw him give us a talk at the OOO Summit in New York, and it was so good. And it just felt like one of those where as he was building it, he's basically putting it out for developers and like, what do you think? And let's get in it and like just do it. And I think that probably built from that core of like, let's all kind of get in here and do it together, which just sort of permeates out with everybody that you interact with. And so I do have to say, you and the team have got the best. Listen to me if I can phrase this right. Your culture just like permeates and seeps through social and all the interactions and even the product at launch, like everything. It just like wafts out from all of it. And I
You're
don't know too
making my
many
day.
other, no, but I don't know too many other companies that I've interacted with or that I've followed like that like it's just palpable. And which is amazing. So kudos on that.
That's so kind of you to say. Thank you so much.
Um, so hi. Uh, um, such an interesting journey with how we started using Jam early on when I've done QA before in other project and program manager who has sort of had to take on QA as part of the process, and so I've used a bunch of different tools. Um, and when I started using Jam, I immediately like I sent out this like at channel in development. I'm like, I found a thing. I found a thing. You guys are gonna love what I found. You're gonna love me for what I found. And so I started doing it, and now everybody's into Jam. And I've also been. I think I told you once I was on the call with another company who was trying to sell me or onboard me to something, and their site didn't work, and I jammed it live for them, and they were like, can you just send me a screenshot? I was like, mm-mm. A screenshot is not going to cut it. For your dev team, I'll show you what'll cut it. And I did a jam while I was like, and then I sent him the link, and I almost sent it like, see what your dev team thinks about that. So, it's amazing. I want to hear about the early before we get into the jam stuff, like where what started you on this path, like the early I don't know, back to Cloudflare days, or I love that you were part of 1.1.1.1. That's fun. I want to hear the early stories.
There's a 1.1.1.1 fun fact, which is that the night before the launch, the I think it was Passover. The team went over to one of the engineers' houses for Passover, and we stayed out very late. And the launch would be 6 a.m. the next day. But what a 6 a.m. launch means that engineers have to be online before to actually deploy like everything live. And what we decided at 2 a.m. was it would be safer to just deploy everything now, and like that way there's no risk in the morning if anyone oversleeps, like whatever.
Yeah.
And by the time we woke up for our 6 a.m. launch, it was already on the top of Hacker News. Someone found it because people use 1.1.1.1 to like test if their router is working, like.
Totally.
And so someone had just found it, and it already launched without us. And it was actually a really big deal because when you work with reporters, you make promises about embargoes and who's going to have the first scoop. And
Right.
we broke those promises, and it was a bad thing. But that was a fun fact from the launch. There's another fun fact about 1.1.1.1, which is we were super excited to build this. We started building it, and then the core engineer leading the project, their work visa expired.
Oh.
So the project was on pause, and we didn't for like however long it would take. And we wanted to launch it on April 1st because it's floor one.
Right, totally.
And so there was only one day that we could possibly launch it. And we were getting closer and closer to April. And 3 weeks before, like,
Oh,
he gets his work visa and works so hard. Somehow, some Herculean effort is able to launch this thing in time. And anyway, that one product was such a moment.
oh my goodness, that's amazing. I love those. Like right down to the wire, and everything comes up. Your Hacker News like find sounds a lot like Robinhood had a very similar, right? Where it was sort of like they put up a splash page and they're like, we're going to put this thing up or whatever. And then Hacker News caught it. And as legend goes, they like wake up and there's like, 50,000 signups on the wait list and all those sort of things. The sort of like, wait, what? Those sort of surprise moments. That's great. It's like internet lore.
So Jam has one too. It wasn't quite as successful as Robinhood's. So in the earliest days of Jam, oh my gosh, it was a grind. We knew we needed to solve this problem of like PM, engineer collaboration, but we weren't getting the product just right. So we would just keep launching and launching, and we launched 7 different variations of this product that failed. And the eighth version, we just decided let's be a lot more deliberate, a lot more quiet, a lot slower. We first we didn't ship it to any users until it was like perfect for us internally.
Mhm.
And then like we only brought in 5 users, and then we're like, if these 5 don't retain, it's not good enough. Like
Right.
expanded to 10 and then like 20, but like we kept it so small. And then um and then we saw retention was good, so we like quietly removed the join the waitlist button and replaced it with a sign up button. And then like we're like whatever, we went to sleep, and the next day there were 200 users in France.
That is awesome. That's
And
so great.
what had happened was there's this like French YouTube show where the premise is it's like a pitch. It's like Shark Tank, but they don't pitch their own startups. They pitch someone else's startup. And
Oh, nice.
someone had coincidentally that episode pitched Jam.
Oh my gosh.
They went to the website and they signed up.
That's amazing. Um, that's so much fun. Wasn't didn't I was going back in the history of Product Hunt, the early Jam as a website editor, right? Like, what was the what was what was the first like prototype early Jam as a, or where did that start from with like, I think we're gonna try X, and it's like getting early prototypes done.
Wait, let me show you. Like,
Oh yeah.
if you're comfortable with like a 30-second wait, let me pull up the old version.
Oh, do it. I love that.
Okay.
I have one of my first wireframes too, which I need to like put in a frame or something. I love those.
The advice I now give every founder is like take and save tons of screenshots and photos from like even your earliest things, because at the time you
Hmm.
don't realize how special they are, but now to be able to look back, like I wish we had more screenshots, I wish we had more photos.
Totally. Yeah.
So
Amazing.
the first this is live on my laptop, the first version of Jam. We basically were like, well, what if it was like Google Doc style comments for your website? And so we added like this like emoji react bar, or you could leave
Oh, nice.
it. We didn't have a logo yet. I don't know what this was. It was not called Jam at the time. At the time, the JavaScript you installed, we called it Kahoot.js because you're working in cahoots with each other. Now,
That's great.
first version on my laptop, and then Ertifa tried it out. He was launching 1.1.1.1 for families, and
Yeah.
so we're on Zoom. It's like early pandemic, and we didn't even have the accounts yet, so he's using my username and avatar because he's hard to get in. But this was the first version.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so nice to have those, like, and be able to go right back to those moments. I knew I wanted to get something done, and I had this idea. It's funny, I had sort of the big grand vision first, but then I just sort of hyper jumped right into the smallest little piece that could get built. And so I found a developer on Upwork and I said, this is what I want. And he's like, well, you got to send me some wireframes or something. So I'm like, okay. So I basically over here, like I made a card and I'm like, there's like copy URL and like delete and like a button, and you can see this button is like, I think copy and pasted from Bootstrap or something. And I've got like visit, you could visit it, and maybe there's some tags, and you can definitely tell this is copied from somewhere else. And then there's a title, and then now you have lots of these, and you add some notes up top, and that's a stack. And he was like, okay, great. And he started actually working off of these.
Wow.
And then I started doing basically the database flow down here, where it was like the difference between the stack ID and they have cards as children, and and then I think it was like a week, and he sent me a prototype,
Wow.
and as soon as I saw it, I got one of those, like, hair on arms and neck, hair stands up on, and you're just like, oh wait, I can see how this like starts to. What's funny though is it always felt like a glitch in the matrix to me, because it's just links. But we just don't think and operate that way on things. And so, but now it has grown into iOS and Android and Chrome and Firefox and Edge and Safari, and we're close on PC and Mac. So yeah, that was 6.5 months ago.
Whoa, that's crazy.
I know. So yeah, so much fun. I love those early things. So what was the iteration between like when you started with the commenting on the websites, and then it sort of was it what were the cycles between sort of iterating through the different ideas before you sort of landed on doing QA?
The each time we would ship something, it would solve one business problem but present another. So the first version, it was JavaScript you had to install on your website. And PMs were like, this is great. I would love to use this. But then we would, like, their engineers would be like, you want me to add what to staging?
Yeah, totally.
And then we
Yeah.
would like hop on a call with them, and we would do the security review, and they would send us like an Excel with like, 5 pages of each one has like 100 rows of like questions to answer. And we were like, this is not the go-to-market we wanted. So then we were like, okay, so people like the idea of this, but they don't want to install anything. What if it all happens in a web app? Like we iframe your website, and then you can sort of leave comments on top.
Mm-hmm.
What we found is people used it a ton, but only for like 3 months, and nothing,
Oh,
because
interesting.
it's only good for landing pages, because real product has such in-depth state that you can't really open it inside this. Like it would be a bother to go open it again. And so when do companies build new landing pages? Like once or twice a year.
Yep.
And so the usage would be very heavy, but then we would lose our users. And we're like, gosh, like that's not a business either.
Yeah, totally.
So then we thought, what would be so useful that you would come into this like into this website where we've iframed your website and use it every day. And we thought, well, what if we allowed you to just make the changes yourself? So if you're a designer, you're a PM, or you're a marketer, and you just want to make a copy change or a color change or an asset change, what if this was the editor to do so? And so that's how we did the website editing. It was pre-AI, and unfortunately, like the level of accuracy in the pull request, like it wouldn't use whatever component library you were like, it was just very basic. Wasn't it good enough for prod? And so we then pivoted away from that too. But that's sort of how that was like how we were winding down the road of how to solve this problem.
Now, where did it start from the early from the first iteration? Like, who was the team, and was it bootstrapped, or was there funding, or what was like the first month, or negative, 1 month? Like, what did that look like?
We were very, very lucky, and we raised right out of the gate. So
Oh wow.
before there was anything, before we had incorporated. And we were very, very lucky to do so. And it was life-changing in that, because I think that if we had not done that, I don't think Jam would exist today.
Oh wow.
That is, when we started, we had a rocky start. It took us a long time to figure out product market fit. And I think that it would have been very hard to invest in us as we were just iterating, churning out new versions of Jam. Will this work? Will this work? And nothing was working.
Right.
And so fast forward today, 150,000 users, but in the beginning that was not obvious. And so we were very, very lucky to raise out of the gate. And actually now the advice that I tell founders is, if you can, raise before there is anything, because it is counterintuitive, but it is easier to raise when you have nothing than when you have nothing. Because when you have nothing, it's all potential and they're making a bet in you. But when you have nothing, even if it's very early, now you're looking at that and you can see, is it working or is it not? And does it wow you or does it not? And the bar is so high to get to something that has results and would wow you. And so it's just a lot harder.
How would you say for early founders, especially first-time founders, though, that like if there's nothing, I feel like maybe it's just also this environment. It's a little harder to be like, I have an idea and a deck, and I promise that I can do this. And
Yeah.
people go, totally, I would love for you to try and see if you can do this. Like, what would you say, a little bit in this environment, but like, of sort of how to go about either the story or the process of doing that pre-product.
Yes. So story and process. I would say this is hard to pull off, but if you're going to try, here's how I would do it. The first is, we as people are so bad at selling ourselves because it's uncomfortable and we're too familiar with all our flaws. But if you ask your best friends or your closest colleagues, how would they market you to a pre-seed VC? They actually probably have a really good pitch for you. So
yeah.
As an example, imagine someone just starting out, they might not know how to market themselves, but their friend might, if their friend were to pitch them to a VC, they might be like, this person works on the fastest growing team at this company. They have years of industry experience. They personally were looking for a product like this. They are the expert in the market that cares the most about this. If someone's going to make this company happen, it's them.
Right.
Versus that person might just be like, I'm X whatever company, right? It's just
yeah, totally.
And so asking your friends, and then on the process side, I used to be a VC and I would read every single cold email because you actually don't get that many. Most people just don't reach out.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mistake that most people make in cold email is they try to sell you in the first email.
Right.
But instead of thinking sell, the fundraise, but rather compel a meeting, you would write a different email. So a pitch would be like, we're doing this, we have this traction, here's the deck, do you want to call?
Don't you want in on this? It's yes, no.
But a compelling outreach might be like Twitter DM or a short email, 3 sentences. That's like, I was just listening to you on this podcast. We think about this the exact same way. I'm actually about to quit my job to start this company. Let me know if I can show you my plans and hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Right? It's still a far reach, but a better shot than
totally. And also less pressure if your whole mindset is to be in just networking mode and getting used to meeting people and sort of saying, let me know how I can help, and and it's less about, I really want to tell you this thing and I want to see if you're into writing me a check. And if you're just in reach out mode, then you also don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to be sort of right. It's just about being you, and seeing if you can connect with other like-minded people. And then when you're ready to sort of start raising, you also have more and more of a kind of group to touch base with, that's so great. I love that. Cool. So you raised, and then were the early investors okay with the 4 years or 3 years of pivots where you're like, we've got a new thing, here's what it is, okay, I got it. How was that?
In our 18 months of trying to figure out what this product should be. Okay, so I think we got very, very lucky. And in that we raised from what I would describe as patient capital.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen other friends start startups in our exact same position, be like 18 months in, still figuring things out, and their investors give up on them and they tell them, hey, you should just return the capital or you should pivot and do something else.
Oh, wow.
But our investors were very patient with us. And they said, it's, you're iterating. Let's keep iterating. Let's see what's there. And if they had not encouraged us to keep going, or if they had actually told us to give up, Jam would not exist. But it's
right.
Jam. Let me show you something I was looking at today. Okay, I'm looking at a post that Lenny wrote on Lenny's newsletter about product market fit. And in it, he has this really awesome chart with, on one side, you see all these logos of successful SaaS companies that you know and love. And then the x-axis is how many years it took them to get to product market fit. And it's my favorite companies are here. Notion took 3 years to first field product. Airtable took 4 years. It's to build a really valuable business, it just takes a lot of shots on goal. It's really, really hard to invent something from scratch. It's never been invented. And it just is going to take a long time. And VCs who have been around a while know that and they get it. But VCs that are newer to the game might not. And they might be easy money because they just started being VCs in 2021. And so if you have a choice and you can raise from VCs that you think are more patient, it could give you a shot that otherwise you wouldn't be able to make.
I love seeing Figma at the 5-year mark.
Isn't it just incredible? So the Figma story is amazing. When they originally started, I heard it was a drone company originally.
And Slack was an in-browser game. It was an in-browser game company that they had started, and basically you would sort of play with other people, sort of like a massive online multiplayer, and it was about 7 giants and their dreams, whatever. And there was a grand, a grand launch, and it had fanfare, but then it didn't really work, and it kind of and then to be able to pivot, what was happening was internally for the development of that game, they were using an old school IRC chat to be able to talk back and forth. And so they're basically backing up and thinking, well, what should we sort of pivot to? And they think about this old IRC chat and what it doesn't do, but if it did do this, then it could. So it's almost like the tool that they were using to build this other game that did not happen, they pivoted into a multi-billion-dollar company years in, which is amazing. I love that chart though. That's great. I'm gonna share that in the notes because it's really nice to also see, I think, I feel that initial early pressure of, and I know these are all learnings, but sending out the first 1 or 2 investor emails and feeling like the next one just has to blow everybody's socks off. You know what I mean? You just feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta show that we just tripled our users in a month or whatever. And I think just in the past week or so, I've come to a lot more realization of being and feeling more comfortable of just, I stopped, we started doing paid ads and we were getting people signed up, but I don't know how good the sort of fit was for the initial users that were signing up and we're sort of trying, but I just turned ads off and we're just going to pivot for a little while and try a different segment and try something specific. But it's nice to be able to sort of, I don't know, feel comfortable in exploring that without feeling like I've got to prove X to so-and-so by, X day. So I know that will change quite a bit in the future, but
that process is just so inherently uncomfortable as a human because the reason why humans have existed for so long is because our brains are wired to do things that get us closer to the goal. And when things are not getting us closer to the goal, then we, do something else, right? And so but to get to product market fit, you have to do the exact opposite. You have to just keep trying despite seeing no results. And you have to do so long, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it hurts your brain. There's no way it can't, because the human response is to feel pain when you are trying to do something and not succeeding so that you pivot your strategy. Like that is a survival mechanism. And so
Yeah.
no matter what, even if things are going well at this phase where it's just like early, like pre-PMF, it is just uncomfortable, like physically and emotionally.
I almost think that a lot of companies, get so complacent because they lose that early ability to back all the way up and go, is this working? Or are we being left behind or whatever? And making sure that it's only about those little incremental updates on a regular basis. And so then you have someone come up out of nowhere. And we see this with AI and other things like that, that companies that have been supposedly doing it for years, but nobody really knew about it. And then all of a sudden you get like an open AI or somebody come up and just like eat everybody's lunch, is because everyone was fairly complacent and in sort of taking the safe route versus, I think, probably losing a lot of that early startup mentality of continuing to sort of back up, go all the way down the mountain to then take a different route and climb all the way back up again. No, that's a good point. And getting used to the uncomfortability of it is, and it sounds like also your team kind of got used to that process, right? And I bet that's been good.
Um, yes, and we have such an amazing team. And one of the things that I love about the personalities on the team is that people are drama free. So when things were not working, we just talked about, oh, what's our hypothesis? And there was no assigning blame. No one was like, well, I had this idea. Like it was just very, basically we could spend our energy and effort thinking about outside the company, not inside the company. And I know that's important at every stage of company, but especially in those early days where nothing is going to be working for 2 years, it's just so important. Like if you can hire a drama-free team.
How did you hire a drama-free team?
Okay. We did not hire right away. Rather, we worked with contractors for a really long time. And I thought at the time this is unusual, but I've learned since this is not that unusual. Like Calendly was built by a team of contractors in Ukraine. I love Calendly. I use it every single
So
day.
I too.
Great company, like great SaaS business, built by contractors. So we did the same thing. We didn't yet have on day one people who we were ready to like bring on board first hires. And so we built with a contracting firm in Poland until we found the people who we were like, these are our first hires. This is our team.
Yeah. I actually think a lot of that's changing, and I think now it even feels weird to talk to somebody on the phone or on Zoom a couple of times and then be like, I would like to permanently bring you on my team forever. And I have no idea how you handle stress or other people or whether you're a nice person to work, but like, it's just from this sort of like polished view of a couple of times. Well, that's a funny joke, and that's so nice. Oh, that's so interesting. And now I would like you to sign on forever. Um, I've I've done the same thing. Everybody's been contract, and I think it almost takes those first couple of months and a couple of hard periods of getting over something to sort of see how people react, or who brings also ideas to the table, or who sort of gets into a hard spot and really just sort of shies away from it and doesn't, you know what I mean, and sort of seeing some of that stuff before you commit. And I think we're actually going to get more and more into a place where more people are going to be just contracting to move from company to company to learn different things versus, yeah, whatever the opposite of please come work for our company forever is the assumption. And then it's more just sort of like, you try and learn from a number of different companies in 1 to 2 year stints. So I love that. I love working with people ahead of time.
One thing that is I think super cool is that two of our earliest contractors back in those days are now at Jam. Um, so one was from the Polish development agency. He's now building Jam's AI like as we well, I guess now it's late for him, but like a few hours ago was building Jam's AI as we speak. And then the other one, oh, this I love this. So in the earliest days, it was me and Erdifa in the code base, and um, pretty soon, I was creating more problems in the code base than I was contributing. And one day, Erdifa had a conversation with me that was like, I don't know how to tell you this, but you can't.
No more pull requests. No, please don't submit anymore.
And I was like, that's perfectly fine, but who's going to
Yeah.
make the product pretty? Because I would mostly go in and make CSS changes because I wanted it to look a certain way.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, let me find a contractor who will make the CSS changes for me. And I went on Dribbble, which is like a design portfolio website, and I searched for the word CSS. I was like a designer that knows about CSS. And I found this guy, Petter, based in Belgrade. And 4 years later, he is now the first engineer on Jam's growth team. And like, anyway, so the contractors that you bring in stay with the company and, like they leave their DNA.
Totally. Actually, the first episode of this podcast, I interviewed Teha, who founded Gun.io. And Gun is great, by the way. Essentially, their team's amazing. You call and say, like, I need a full stack developer, but I need somebody pretty senior. And the first interview I had was Martina, who is now our CTO. And so after Martina came on, the second interview I had was Max, and Max came on. Max was great too. And then I was on Teja's podcast, and during that podcast, he was like, "You should totally have a podcast." And so I started it, and then he was the first one on this podcast. So like, it's such an interesting. But from a Martina perspective, she's amazing, and I'll tell you what's interesting is that she came on and basically was able to take this early, we're going to pivot all the time and we're going to do stuff and I'm going to try and make order out of chaos, but also does it with such like grace and just calm demeanor and just sort of like, no, hold on a second, let me think this is the way we're going to do it. And I even had over the next couple of months with working with her, which is how we sort of made the decision, was over the next couple of months with working with her, I had 3 to 4 people randomly out of the blue just ping me on Slack, and they're like, I just want to say it's so good working with Martina. Like, it's so, you know what I mean?
That's
And so,
amazing.
but those are one of then you sort of say, hey, I would like you to come on the team and let's work together. But I think it's such a smart way to do it and now that between all the Contra and Upwork and Fiverr, and I think working through a number of different iterations, especially really early on, and not sort of committing to a team full out, makes so much sense, because then you can really, really get a sense of who they are when they're working with the team. That's amazing. I love that. Where's Jam headed? Like, what's the 3-year version from now? Is AI debugging everything on your site and writing up the Jira tickets?
The other day, I was on a call with one of our customers, and we were talking about how it's going using Jam and all things. But what she was building was just incredible. Like, at her job, she and her team build software that helps people do drug discovery faster so they can save lives sooner. And I was like,
oh wow.
Jam exists to make software development a little speedier so that you can ship those like futuristic features that have such an impact on your customers like sooner. Like, what are we here for? It's like accelerate the future, right?
Yeah.
And just talking to her, like I was like, I feel so blown away that we can play even a little part in her team's innovations going out the door sooner. And so we want to do so much more of that. Like, we exist to help our customers do more for their customers and to do it in less time. And there are lots of places where we can help. So right now, all 500,000 bugs caught with Jam every month are web-based. But what about mobile teams? What about teams building native apps for desktop?
Mm-hmm.
We just expanded to a brand new product. So previously, before last Tuesday, Jam was mostly used by like product and QA teams. It's internal bug reporting, but actually, who reports bugs the most? It's end users and customers. And so we just shipped Jam for customer support, helping end customers report Jam. And so we just want to cover the surface area of bugs. We want to make sure no one's spending time like wasted just following up on bug details, that it's like fix stuff fast and get back to building, because that's actually what's important.
I love the intercom like app. It's so good that to be able to, because I've been in that place so many times where you're trying to build something for someone and they say, hey, XYZ doesn't work. And immediately in your mind, you're like, okay, what version of Chrome are you on? And are you on a Mac? Are you on a PC? What's your screen size? Like all these things sort of go through your head that you want to get out. And instead of having to do that word salad of like questions, you're literally like, I'm going to send you something. And if you can just sort of recreate that, it's going to give me all the info I need. Is so amazing. Again, to collapse that, like being able to close something out for a customer sooner is amazing.
Oh my gosh. It makes me so happy to hear that. Thank you. And I'm really excited about this launch. So we launched it last Tuesday. There's already a team. They've got I mean, they've got hundreds of bugs reported through this. Like their full team of 30 support agents is like using this product. And I'm just super excited because for a customer, it's frustrating too to go back and forth support. So you feel like no one believes you. Like
Totally. I could see a little bit of how, I guess, on mobile or others being able to have jam packages installed, right? That have the ability to kind of like listen and hear and then kind of report back, and then obviously with integrating with AI could be so great. Um, it's amazing. I could see the like jam ecosystem coming together of how it, just squashing bugs like crazy.
it's super exciting to build. It's also it requires the company and the engineering team to sort of like kind of grow up a bit. So up until now, all of our code base is written around the idea that Jam is a browser extension. But in order
Mhm.
to expand to new products, we have to unfurl that from our code base. And we need to structure ourselves differently, where there's like core business logic over here with a layer of wrappers over here with a layer of applications for each platform. And so it means structuring the team differently. It means structuring the code base differently. And so it's interesting on multiple levels, even beyond the product itself. Like it's fun to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you, everybody's remote, is that right? Or is there an office and everybody's
Everyone
remote?
is remote, but I will tell you that I miss the office. And while I wouldn't give up anything to work with this specific team, the one thing I wish that was different was that we were all together.
I think it could be funny that tomorrow you should go into Slack and do an at channel that says, I am now mandating a back to office. And you're like, starting today, everyone will be in the office. And you're like super serious about it. And then I could just see everybody in the DMs being like, where do I go? Where do I show up? Like, what do I like?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's
I'm
amazing.
so fascinated by all the return to office in this way, and I almost feel like it's legacy management that doesn't really have a good sense of how to sort of connect with people, across the globe in different ways. But I've thought about that too. That I don't think we want to expand into a place where we're buying offices for office's sake. That you've got all these like leases and overhead in multiple cities and all those sort of things. But I do think that having sort of innovation and culture centers in the right way, where you've got places that people can come on a monthly or quarterly or whenever they want to be able to sort of connect around some things. But I don't think that we will ever have like, I don't know, my office desk with a picture frame with a, you know what I mean, that I like I go there on a regular basis. It's so interesting to be able to have such a global team, and I think we're in 6 time zones, 5 time zones, but and to still be able to have culture like that. How do you keep culture up in a remote team that's all over the world?
Um, I used to think culture would mean things like virtual happy hours, but really building the company, culture is the way that we do everything. And so work doing the work reinforces how we do the work here at Jam. And like part of the team culture is look, the team is just super positive. Like when we have a Slack channel called What's Cooking, where we share in progress work. It's like for the moment where it's like, this finally works. I need to show someone. And you
Yeah.
click in there, and the comments are always just like, oh my God, people have this excitement. Um, And that's part of the culture. But every single time someone shares their work and every single time someone comments positively, it reinforces it. And so if you kind of zoom out, what is culture? It's just a self-reinforcing cycle of like, how do we talk to each other, work with each other, respect each other, all the things in the company. How are you thinking about it for Stacklist?
I think we do a lot of jokes. There are a lot of jokes passed around. Um, I think it's how you interact, to your point around it's the little in between times. Do we start a meeting and say, okay, guys, we're 2 minutes past the hour. We should get this meeting going, or are we sort of like, the first 5 minutes is everyone sort of chatting about this thing that was going around X. You know what I mean? This post. Have you seen this thing? Or what did you watch last night? Or and then also signing off is always everyone always sort of has 5 or 10 minutes of catch up. Like how are the kids? What did you do last weekend? And and it's almost having a bit of that normal water cooler conversation, but nothing is rushed in that sort of like formal meeting. And we do a lot of quick huddles and just like catching up and what you working on and what do you want to work on, and and it's so interesting sending audio messages and video messages in Slack, sometimes a lot more than just text. Um, so there's a number of us that'll do that, that'll just send like an audio or even just do a Zoom video and just say like, hey, I saw your thing. That sounds great. Here's what I'm working on. Just wanted to tell you that. If you want to catch up later, like, cool. And just having more of that. And I think for me, it's trying to remove all of that kind of, I've been in, I don't know, big consultant, big, that the sort of formality of the suit and the white press shirt and all those sort of things about how things should run. And I think, I don't know, I think we try and create a culture where you just enjoy, I know a lot of people have the like, no jerks or we don't tolerate this sort of thing. I think it's about also creating the energy that every interaction you have, you just like, you almost want to stay on longer talking about stuff and catching up, and you just sort of create and permeate that energy through everything. Um, and yeah, it's so interesting how organic it is, and yet it's thoughtful in the ways that we try and like interact with each other every day, even though Croatia, Serbia, Philippines, Germany, New York, Colorado, Georgia, like everybody's everywhere, and yet we feel so close and tied to each other every day. So
It sounds like you're building like um, the human company. Like we are humans building Stacklist is sort of like what I'm hearing from you, where it's we talk about our lives at the last 5 minutes of the meeting. We don't just chat in Slack, but like we'll bring our voice to like show there's a human behind here excited about what you're doing. Like it just like all the examples you were sharing, I was like, oh, it's just so human.
and I think that goes to the principles of Stacklist, the idea that everything in Stacklist that we're building towards is curated for humans by humans, and the curation is where we, you know, Google Gemini or OpenAI ChatGPT is not going to be able to curate my life for
Mm.
me. There's something about that, like that time that you try that case for the first time and you go, oh, I got to write that down because I'm going to send that to a friend, or I want to text it to something. Like and then when you get to a party and you're telling about like, oh my gosh, I went to this movie or I saw this show and I want to share it with you. It's basically trying to remove all the barriers and all the like siloed data that are in our lives that we don't even realize, and just be able to cut that out and be able to go like, oh my gosh, I got a thing, I want to send it to you. And you're like, sounds great. And now I can experience it. And it's all about those human moments. So yeah, it's an interesting POV, that essentially building a human company that tries to make it easier to share human moments.
Right. And
um,
I love, I mean, as soon as you said it, it was like, of course, like that's the differentiator. Like no SEO and no AI is going to tell you what's so lovable about something as a human, but a stat
yeah,
by like yeah, by humans for humans is like, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Gemini can't tell, or Perplexity can't tell me why that French place down the street is so delicious. Because there's something different when you try the mussels, at a place and you're like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to, is it acceptable to turn the bowl up and just like drink all the juice in the bottom of the mussels? Like there's that moment, and nothing's ever going to be able to do that. But what you can do is like save that and then add some notes. Like they don't mind if you drink all the mussel juice or whatever. Like, and that context is what we normally send through text, right? Where you text it and you're like, oh my gosh, ask for Tom. He owns the place. He's totally going to hook you up. And that is the sort of piece of it, which is not a bookmarking app, and it's not a list of links. It's a mechanism to be able to sort of share that context of what it feels like to experience that thing.
It's the Joy of Life app.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me. Do you ever listen to This American Life?
Yeah.
They did a segment with an author who wrote every single day something that gave him joy. And he reads like an excerpt from it on This American Life. It's lovely if you ever like want to just walk around and like feel happy to yourself. I think it's such a good listen, right? One of the joys that he wrote and read in that segment became part of something that we do at Jam, which is one of the joy that he shares on this episode of This American Life was he had this little like baby tomato plant, and he was carrying it home. He was like flying home, and he's going through the airport, and he's like putting the little tomato plant like through TSA, and the seat next to him in the airplane was empty, so he put it on the seat, and like the flight attendant would come and like check on how his like little baby tomato plant is doing. And he's like, there's something about being like a grown man carrying this like tiny little plant and like taking care of it that like it makes everyone around you smile. It's like so joyful. And I love that episode. I think that's like, it's just delightful. And it inspired for us our latest Jam swag, which is we're now handing out bug eating plants. And because the joy of flying home from the developer conference, carrying your bug eating plant, you can't just like stuff it in your bag. You gotta carry it. And like, that's a wonderful moment to give to someone. Anyway.
I love it. And I think those are the things that make you want to sort of be a part of something, and that tie you back to sort of the joy of being a kid and like discovering and building. And it's not just the sort of like, I don't know, you get the feeling of traditional business of like, are your reports done? Did you get them in on time? Did you format your email correctly or whatever? And it's more just sort of like everybody connecting and sharing those moments while building something at the same time and having fun doing it. So I love that. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing, and I always love talking to you and watching what you're building. And we will always be rooting the Jam team. And speaking of, we're building out a Stackless profile with all the thing. Did you see it?
Ivana send me in Slack. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and we're actually, I think Princess is going to send it back to Ivana tomorrow. And then what we're doing is also we've got a little form that if the team can fill out, like I don't know, collect some of the favorite playlists and books from the team, is to basically fill out, like, to flesh out some other stacks to put, because one of the things that I love about this is like we're actually encouraging when people build out stack lists that, I don't know, whatever the opposite of a normal link in bio, which is like just the facts, like here are my websites. That's sort of like, well, I don't know, what's the team into? Like, here's what so-and-so listens to when they jam out to work, or like, here's what so-and-so's reading right now, or whatever, which sort of makes it more 360 of the curation of this team. Versus, again, like, yes, I can list out links for you, and who's going to be excited about just seeing a list of links. So
love it.
Yeah, so I'll be excited. We should have that done this week, which is fun.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Jam's first stack list.
Yes, amazing. Well, thank you again, and
thank you.
I appreciate it. This is amazing.
This is so fun.